All right, Raj, thank you so much, man, for doing
Hey,
this.
man, pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I am super excited. We'll just connect randomly, like throughout like every year or two for one thing or another.
Right. That's right.
But I don't think I've seen you in like a decade, like
I
physically.
I was visiting San Francisco a long time ago, and I'm trying to remember the reason. I remember I was staying with another a coworker, a friend of ours from the Oddworld days, Mark Peterson.
Right. Yeah,
what was I there for?
That was shortly that was shortly after you'd been at Bungie, I believe, and like we all went out to eat.
That's right. That's right.
But I left San Francisco in 2008.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So that's been a long time.
So yeah, it was a long time ago.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah. But it's always a pleasure when our paths cross. I know it doesn't happen enough, but
I agree. Well, we can also work on fixing that too. So
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, man, we've got so much to cover because
we sure do.
I know you've been doing this at least roughly as long as I have, and that's a lot to talk about. So
yeah.
So let's start with, tell me about young Raj, like 8, 9 years old. What did you think you were going to do when you grew up? Like, what did you want to be?
Oh, space cowboy. Come on.
Nice.
I think, in all honesty, people who get into art, whatever shape or form that takes, they say, "Oh, I really was into it from a young age." I think I was in some way. I didn't know exactly what form it was going to take. Certainly, from a young age, I was. A lot of people can trace their interest back to Star Wars. It's because Star Wars, I think, more so than any property of that time period, did such a job of showing you how it was made. Do you remember that when it was? I think it was a feature-length documentary around the time of Return of the Jedi. I think it was called From Star Wars to Jedi, in which they walked you through every single movie and walked you through every single special effect. And we're seeing that as a kid, even I'm obviously that time period, that age that you mentioned, and we're seeing that and being like, oh wow, I want to do something like this. Whether making creatures or modeling the ships or drawing. You'd see. Those like Joe Johnston, those guys painting the map paintings. I want to do something like that, some kind of something with entertainment. What shape or form it was going to take. Movies was the easily digestible thing. So yeah, from a young age, I wanted to do something with art and I guess entertainment, and then it certainly solidified over time. The first thing was, and this was we're getting now into kind of high school. I really got into illustration. And I really wanted to draw comic books.
Okay.
And the thing that really, especially for people who grew up in the 90s, it was a big thing. If you remember, around 1990, we're aging ourselves here. I'm aging myself.
Yeah.
Right? I was in high school. That's when Image Comics first dropped in the scene. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
And that thing, they landed like a meteor. And those guys like McFarlane and Liefeld and Jim Lee, they were rock stars.
Yeah.
I don't know if you quite get that as much these days, but back then they were packing auditoriums. They were huge.
I was huge into comics at the same time as well, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And of course you see that, and it's probably more like you're wowed by the rock and roll factor of it. That it was, I got to do that,
right?
And of course I'll help that helped that at that time. It all people will say what they want to say about the early Image Comics. Sure. I get it. But at the time, it was the coolest thing ever. Spawn and Savage Dragon and Wildcats and that stuff. It looked cool as all get out. You had combined with the larger-than-life persona of those creators. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a comic book guy. So I'd copy those Image Comics. And I had no idea how exactly one becomes a comic book artist. It's very difficult, by the way. And I just I'll go work for Image one day and I'll just copy I was copying their stuff. And then, but then that lasted until I graduated from high school. Because after high school was over, I had no idea what to do. And I just kind of went, I ended up going to a school in Massachusetts. So I grew up in Indiana, Northeast Indiana, and I really wanted to get out of Indiana. Yeah. So, I was there for 18 years. I really wanted to get out of there and just go someplace else. So I ended up way out in Massachusetts. And school-wise, it was I had no real focus, really. It was just kind of you're that young and that, you're not dumb. To be frank with you. And you kind of float through life. So it was a couple of years of just what am I doing? I got into like wanting to make movies because back then, like, remember that's when Robert Rodriguez showed up in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole story with him was this guy from Texas just made movies on his own. So of course everybody wants to be Robert, or at least I did. And so then that was a little thing for a while. Then Tarantino was taken off, so everyone wants to be Tarantino. And then I did start messing around with computer graphics. It was really early. Myst had just come out. And the big story with Myst was it had been made with like off-the-shelf software. Because remember, at the time, with video game and 3D graphics in general, whether it be movies or games or Pixar was just coming up, the story we all believe is that the software is like, oh, it's cool, but you got to go to school to get to learn the software, and like even to get your hands on it is well beyond the average person's means. But then you hear about like Myst, like, oh, they made this with off-the-shelf stuff. You can go to Best Buy and buy this stuff, right? It's like Strata Studio Pro and HyperCard. And that's what sort of became big in the colleges then, was everyone's like, well, they did it. We can do it too. So that's what kind of got me going with 3D. But again, it wasn't like super duper serious until, I did I ever tell you I got kicked out of school? Did we ever talk about that?
No.
Yeah. So that school I mentioned, Massachusetts, that lasted like 3-something years. And then, like I said, a lot of drifting around, not a lot of focus. So I was uninvited after a few years.
Uninvited.
And then uninvited. I delivered pizzas for a little while, just like, what am I doing? And then I ended up deciding, I found a school, got some support, financial support to go to a school in, of all places, Vancouver, British Columbia.
Oh, okay.
So Indiana to Massachusetts, all the way to Vancouver, British Columbia. So a lot of driving. Got there, and that's when that was the road to video game.
Okay.
It started off just like interest in animation, CG in general, and then at the time, this is 99. At that time, this is before the .com bubble burst. Video games were taking off, so all my classmates they all want to go, try to get the job at ILM or Pixar or what have you. But I'm like looking at video games and I'm thinking there's a lot of jobs there.
Yeah.
And I like to joke around now. It's like, oh, you could throw a rock and hit like 10 jobs. And I don't know if that was true, but it's like, hey, compared to like trying to get a job at an animation studio, there's like twice as many positions. So I was like one of the few people in my class who went for games. And the company I was a big fan of, even before I worked there, was Oddworld. Because in college, I remember, Abe's Odyssey was just like this huge thing.
Man, same for me. That's funny.
Yeah, it really, because remember, it looks so radically different than anything else you'd seen. Because the CG, even now, you could watch the CG cutscenes for Abe's Odyssey now, and they're still good.
Oh, yeah.
Because CG does not age, as we both know very well.
Yeah.
3D does not age very well. You can go back and look at some of the old games we made. You're like, whoa, okay, yeah that's. May have been state of the art back then. It's pretty rough, but those like the first Oddworld, like the CG cutscenes at least, like still look pretty good because the art was that good.
Yeah.
And so that's when I was wrapping up school back at Vancouver, I said, all right, I actually kind of catered my portfolio to Oddworld a little bit, and then I didn't know what they were doing. I heard they were making some game called Munch's Odyssey, and I said, kind of applied on a whim. And what I did not know, I found out later, was a lot of Vancouver Film School alum at the exact same time all got hired there.
Really?
So all names you're going to remember. Ryan Ellis.
Yeah.
Mark Peterson. Ian Morton.
Wow.
Mo Hoffman.
Uh-huh.
You remember Matt Aldridge?
Yes.
Yep. So, and then include myself. And was there one? No, I think that's it. So those 6, we all were from Vancouver Film School. And I think it actually started with, I'm probably going to get this wrong, and if it ever gets back to him, they'll correct me. I think it started with Mo Hoffman was hired first, and as portfolios started coming in, now these were, let's put the timestamp here. These were on videotape.
Right.
Okay.
Now, wait, what year was this? Was this like,
this is
99, 2000? Okay.
This is 2000. Yeah. So what Mo was doing, because he got in there first, as these tapes started coming in, because he's actually sending him, kind of word to Vancouver Film School, especially to the teachers, like, hey, have your students apply to Oddworld. This is a good company, good play, and they're looking for talent.
Right.
And he would see, and we were all friends in school, so he started seeing our names, like, yeah, mark them down, check them out. So it was my first exposure to networking.
Yeah.
Was through that. And it worked, and we all got hired. So it was neat. It was basically for Munch's Odyssey. and even more so for Stranger's Wrath. Munch's Odyssey was like school part 2. Oddworld and it was school part 2 because we all were friends in school, and then we all got to move to this tiny little town, San Luis Obispo, California.
Talk about tiny.
Tiny little surfer town, right? And some people like became roommates, and then we had like it was like an instant community right away. And make sure we met all new people there, right? Especially later on when you came on board, and Deslitz and others. But even before then, like it was a fun way, like when you're just like your first job in the industry, to be like with people that you already know. It was really lucky, honestly. It was like luck of the draw.
That's really cool.
That was that was my early journey to the start of my
I
career.
didn't realize that your first job was Oddworld. That's great.
Yeah, my first gig. Yeah, Munch's Odyssey. I was hired as a junior world artist.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, when you're talking 2000, that's when I was at Full Sail doing like my full-on degree. I graduated February of 01. So like you're getting your first job when I'm getting my education. And so that's kind of how and then I went to a couple of small companies before I ended up there in 2004. So
I remember because you worked on an Aquaman game, right?
Well, I almost did.
Almost did. Okay.
So what was
We're
funny,
getting old, man. We're forgetting all our stories.
No, you're good. So I was at the second company I was at. I worked on the Casper game. The next game they were going to work on was Aquaman, but I was laid off before I actually was able to do any work. But I tell people, I'm like, I got out of having to work on critically one of the worst games ever made. So I'm not too upset about it, you know?
So it's fine. It's fine. It all worked out, man. It all worked out. Oh, that's funny. I remember this. Now I remember this. I remember you telling me this story. Oh, that's great. All right, I totally remember now.
That was good times.
Yeah, it was good times.
But it was funny because like when I was at Full Sail, when I went to like the behind the scenes tour, the game they were showing was Oddworld's Abe's Odyssey, right? Or Exodus, one of the two. So that was that whole thing where I was like, yeah, man, this looks incredible. Of course I want to try and do this. Like, it was good times. So yeah. So you got to Oddworld, you said 2000 and
2000, October 2000 I started, yeah.
Right. And so you're working on Munch's Odyssey, your first job, right? Like your first time there. Like, what was that like? Were you did you shit yourself? Were you scared to death? Like what?
It was intense, man. It was intense, but it was an interesting experience. So the thing about Oddworld as a first job, was intimidating because it had one of the highest art bars for a studio that I still to this day think I've ever seen.
I agree with that.
I have never worked at a place where like, so when you walk in, you know, we both know Lauren Lanning. The man is devoted to art.
Oh, right? Yeah.
You had that amazing library that was not just books piled up. Like it was like carefully manicured. You had statues and paintings everywhere. Yeah. And that went through the whole studio. You walk in there, right? There's like the sculpts they had of the characters. They had by hand done concept art, like pasted to the walls. Like I have never seen a place that was like that. So you walk in, you're like, whoa, dude, this is intense. I remember my first assignment was build something. I can't remember, like some trash can. And I was like, oh man, like it's like the bar is so high and you're coming out of school and like you thought you knew how to texture and you're going through their assets and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so intense. Like I have no idea how to even keep up with these guys. Like this is like, I'm like, I'm going to get fired next. The whole time I'm like, the client is like imposter syndrome to the max.
Yeah.
I stink. I was hired up by mistake. They're going to be any day now, they're going to fire me. Next week, I'm going to get fired. Next week, I'm going to get fired. And I remember like early on, I've never done this since. I remember staying there the entire night.
Oh man.
I slept at my desk for an hour because I was so nervous that I was going to screw up. And of course, everything I did the next day, they had like a art review and it was all terrible. They flunked everything I made. And I remember just being, whoa, okay. And like, it was a lot, you know, especially, you know, I mean, it was like 23, 24, whatever. And I'm just like, man, I don't know if I'm going to make it. This is super intense. And it didn't really get any easier because Munch's Odyssey, I have never worked in a game and I've made a decent number of games in my 20 years. That's the roughest game I've ever made because that entire game, as you saw it on, you know, when it launched with the original Xbox, was basically made in one summer. So we're telling
really,
I'll tell you behind the scenes story. We're telling the stories here. So when I got there, they did not really have a solid idea of what Munch was going to be. It was like they had all this amazing artwork, but like, what is the game? How is it going to work? I don't think they had quite that. They hadn't really figured it out.
Right.
But the company was very visual, which is understandable, because it's an easy thing to grasp, make it visual. So what they were having, the level artists were doing was they were just building these awesome sets that were gorgeous. They weren't finished, but like they were finished. They had beautiful lighting and modeling, and just fantastic stuff. I remember like flying through these in 3D Studio Max, and like I can't remember what the engine they used. Netimers, I think, was the engine. Does that even ring a bell? I think we're so far past it now that no one remembers.
I don't know. That's funny.
It's ancient history, Netimers. So anyway, I was flying around in Netimers. I'm like, man, these levels are amazing, but like, what do you do? What's the gameplay? And that's the thing is, there was this disconnect where like they were building these awesome sets, and then when the game designers finally had some ideas, as I understood it, but bear in mind, like a game designer from Munch's Odyssey might come in and say like he doesn't know what he's talking about. Right. This is my perception. Was that how are we going to put gameplay in here? Because these spaces aren't built for a 3D camera. They're not built for a character. They're just made to look cool. And so it was clear that, okay, all these pieces we have to find a way to connect it. And one of the artists there, who's amazing artist, he's the art director now at Hyman Studios, Ivan Power. And another amazing artist, Mark Allen. They're the two powerhouses. They're like my mentors there. And those guys, they cooked up this, like, all right, we have to basically remake this entire game in the summer. So what those two did is they put together, and it's not common practice in games, but at the time it was all new for me. They put together like a level kit that we can snap all these spaces together for all these different themes, indoor, outdoor, wherever you needed, so that you could build levels really quick. Now it's not going to be the same level of like super like cinematic detail you're going to get with what they had made before, but it's going to look awesome still because they're awesome artists, and it's going to play great because the surfaces will all work great for cameras and characters and what have you. So using that stuff, those kits, like I focus entirely on the exterior levels for that game. So I had this kit of like clips and tiles and what have you, and trees and all that stuff, and still had to build plenty of custom stuff. But for the most part, you had this kit that you could reuse. Okay. And in 3 months, we built that entire game from scratch.
Oh my god!
And that was the hardest I've ever crunched. At one point, I broke down in tears in the middle of it. I'm like, I don't know if I want to work here anymore. I don't know if I made it. I don't know if I'm like cut out for games. Like it was so rough. It was just, it kicked my booty, man. That was a real rough experience. And then after it was over, and we're telling stories now, it's been long enough. Did you ever hear anything about the layoff they had there?
After that? No, not that one. No.
So yeah, I hope it's so long. I hope I don't get in trouble. Is this a thing that happened? I mean, so after Munch shipped, right? It was like, yeah, it's a thing. It would launch for the Xbox, and which was a cool experience to be like go into GameStop and see a big banner, right. Munch's Odyssey, like, oh hey, yeah, and played it, but still. But they unfortunately had a layoff for reasons I actually don't really know. They cut the company down quite a bit, and I obviously survived the cut. And I remember being like, "Whoa, this is intense." That was my first. That was actually my only true blue honest experience with that kind of thing of like having the big layoff and like just just making it. Yeah. And then and then that's when we entered that sort of interesting wilderness, the journey to Stranger, right? And that was when you and like Steve and a lot of our other friends were like the next generation, right? To come on board, and that's when we went on that Stranger journey, which was that was
a strange journey. But
okay, now remind me again, brother, when did you start?
So Stranger, when I came in, it was relatively, the project was pretty far along. Okay. I came in 2004, and we didn't finish it until 2005. I think I was on it for a little over a year. I think it was something like that.
Okay. So I think Eric he could tell us. Yep. I think you just missed the big reset for that project.
There was some kind of reset. Yeah.
So we're telling stories. Yeah. So I'm gonna tell you some more stories here.
We love stories.
So basically, that project started out. Stranger's Wrath started out. I don't know if you knew this. It started off as Munch's Exodus.
Oh no. Okay.
Because Abe's Odyssey, Abe's Exodus, Munch's Odyssey, Munch's Exodus. That was the idea. And it was gonna be Abe and Munch going on another adventure, and it was all pretty loose. And it stayed loose for a while, and at some point, I can't remember exactly when, Lauren Lanning cooked up the idea for Stranger. he had this idea that it started off with him, I think, as like the Centaur form.
Yeah.
And then somewhere, I think there was a concept of like, well, what happens when he goes into a town? Well, he disguises himself and he looks kind of like a cowboy. And then that became developed into the, his alternate persona,
right.
his cowboy persona. And then that's became Stranger's Wrath. That's the beginning of it.
Okay.
But what exactly how the game was going to work was really just, I mean, okay, we had the idea of it's first person, third person. You've got the crossbow.
Right.
It's going to shoot critters.
That on its own, nobody had done, right? Like the first
no,
and
it's
third,
crazy.
Like that was
it was completely unprecedented. And also to have like, two sets of mechanics. It wasn't like, okay, he can still shoot in third person and also still be acrobatic in first person. It's like, no, when you're in third person, it's game A. And when you're in first person, it's game B.
Right.
Like it was very unusual. It was very different. But of course, it's a testament to the programmers and the designers that were there who managed to make that thing work.
Right.
So anyway, so it was like all these ideas, like, well, how are we going to make this work? And so what happened was maybe it was publisher mandated or whatever. I remember there's a string of big demos, and the demos seem to have gotten bigger and bigger. Like there's these big valleys and canyons, and they're so big it's hard for the art team to even art it. By this point, I had stepped over to character art. I was no longer a world artist,
right?
Because during that, when the company had kind of shrank down, the character artist had left, and there was an opening, and they just said, "Well, would you be interested in doing character art?" I'm like, oh, "Sure, sounds fun." And then, so Stranger's Wrath was my first character art job, and that was actually it was a total blast. It was just a complete, great, really great fun time. And but still, we didn't know like what is this thing going to be, and we went through like I think 2 or 3 demos, and they got kind of worse and worse because we're really crunching hard to make these demos, and we end up with like it's just not fun. Doesn't make sense, and I don't know who did this. I don't know if it was Eric Yo, who was the lead designer,
right?
Charles Bloom, who's the lead programmer, or Ryan Ellis, who's the lead artist,
right?
Or maybe it's a combination of the three.
Though.
Dream team. Oh well, yeah, we had to visit that.
Yeah,
the talent that was there.
Oh my god. Yeah.
If you look at where they've gone since,
yeah.
I mean, amazing. So I don't know which of those 3 dudes did this or how this exactly came about, but someone said, "Stop. We're putting the hammer down. We got to figure this thing out."
Yeah.
And I remember, I kind of feel like I do know that Eric Yo had to have been one of the linchpins.
I think it was Eric. Yeah, that sounds like something he would do.
Something he would do because he just built. He said, "I'm no art. I'm just going to take we're going to build these pieces, these blue grid textures, so we can figure out scale.
Yep. And
I'm just going to build this compound." And what we think we had the characters, like the Outlaws. Remember those guys?
Oh yeah.
And we had the basic crossbow. We had the stranger. We had his squirrels and chipmunks and stuff. And we had the basic pieces, but we don't want to worry about anything else. And he was just going to drill down, and we're just going to iterate on this until we get the classic,
let's find the fun.
Commonplace now. Let's find the fun, the classic vertical slice. I remember we just kind of stopped, and it probably didn't last that long. And my memory was like weeks, but maybe it was a couple of days. And he drilled on it, and he had everyone play it, and we all gave our feedback. And he went back, iterated, came back, play tested, feedback, and it was what we should have done. It's what the thing you want to do in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's sort of commonplace now, but it was just whatever the process the company went through. At the end of that, I remember one day we're all like, "Hey, this is fun."
Nice.
Like you figure, because he came up with the loop, right? You come in, you scope it out, you see where everybody is.
Yeah.
You come up with so it's Far Cry, right? I mean,
yeah.
Like, it was Far Cry before Far Cry. It's actually, when you think about it, it's like, oh, actually, there was a lot of really cool stuff in the thing.
Yeah.
And anyway, that became the reset button, and then really the game just flowed from there. It was really amazing.
Nice.
Because that became the first encounter of the game, and everything was basically a variation on that. So I think that's when you came on board, and others got up to speed.
Right.
At least that once that template was set.
Yeah.
I feel like from speaking for myself, I felt like we kind of cruised.
Yeah.
To the end from there.
So I'm pretty sure they kind of cleaned the design house before that, right? Like, wasn't there the designers like shortly, because like when I came in, Jack was there. Dave Freed was there, Gotham was there, Steve was there, and Eric was there. And so I came in as designer number 6, and I replaced someone in particular, but I know there was some kind of like just major change that had happened leading up to that, but I never really heard kind of what had happened or whatever.
I think it just wasn't for that particular one. I won't say names or anything like that, but I think for that particular instance, I think it just wasn't working out.
Yeah.
And we just needed just a new perspective.
Sure.
Because that team had, they had gelled well. And they had, stemming from what Eric had laid out, everything seemed to be flowing.
Yes.
And then you came on board, and you're like the final piece of the puzzle.
I like to think that. So, but let's back up and let's talk about that team, because what I always tell people is we built that entire game with 27 people.
27 people.
Right, because we had
amazing.
There was 10 programmers, 8 artists, 6 designers, and 3 CG guys, right?
Yeah,
or 3 and like, who builds a game? And especially at that time, right? Because like every other team I saw within the few years after that were at least 75 to 100 people. And then within a few years, now all of a sudden you're hearing about Ubisoft throwing 1,000 people
like
on a team.
1,000 people or more than that, yeah.
And now there's multiple companies working on them. And what we did with that few people, like, is a true testament to who those people were. Because I came in and I knew immediately I was going to learn a lot, because these people were giants. Like, whether or not there was the game industry is real bad at recognition, right? Of understanding how good people are.
It's absolutely terrible at it. Oh yeah, man.
Though it didn't take long at all for me to be like, oh. And at first it was the whole imposter syndrome thing. I'm like, I do not deserve to be here. Like, how long is this going to last? But man, like, I learned so much from everybody there, and it was just. When everybody asked me where if I could redo something again, like, I would put that team together again.
Thank you for saying that. I've said that
heartbeat.
Throughout the years, like, especially since we've all gone on and expanded our skill sets, learned so much more.
Yeah.
If any team could be put back together, just for one game, like Blues Brothers style, get the band back together. That's the team, because what a group of talent across the board. Because again, you look at what people have done since,
right?
You have guys who worked at Valve, guys who worked at Bungie, guys who worked on Star Wars.
Yeah.
And the Electronic Arts and all these, just you name it, like one after another, after another, after another. Just such amazing talent. Worked at Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse. I mean, just all this amazing stuff. Get those people together. I mean, what would they cook up? It would be so cool,
man.
And even
I would say, especially in that kind of environment where the creativity was like, we had so much freedom to do things we thought were cool, as long as it fit within, the realm of what we were building. Right. If we could get all of us together and just be like, what do you guys want to do? Oh shit. Like,
it'd be amazing. Man. Especially once we got like rolling on Stranger, where, certainly the ideas, it was definitely very art directed, because, it had a very, very particular kind of eccentric style, the idea, the characters in the world, and you're shooting like, bola armadillos and bats that explode and things like that. But even within that, there was tons of freedom,
Yep.
And it was just, it was really fun. Like that, I think back on that time so fondly. Like, the time before everybody else got there, like, was rough, because we had no idea what was going on, and the game kind of went through all these permutations, and we're trying to find the fun and figure it out.
Yeah.
And then I remember that from the moment we figured it out, it was like, for that blue box level that Eric put together, it just snapped together, like all these ideas for the bosses and the little towns and the characters, and you guys were constantly scripting crazy events. I remember Gatam spent he had this wacky idea for like a minecart level. It's like, what are you gonna do? And he figured out how to manipulate the tools for that. And you had like parts where there's stealth and parts where there's all the weapons are taken away, so you have like these cinematic moments, and like you said, it was made with this teeny tiny team that even for that time was small. Like, look, we had I was the one character artist. We had like 1 or 2 animators, handful of level designers, amazing. It's amazing what that was pulled together. And the CG in that, again, talk about CG.
Gosh.
You can go back and watch again. That CG is 2 people.
Yeah. It was just Ian and Rich, right? Like that.
Yeah, it's just Ian and Rich.
Unbelievable. Wait, was there not a third person on that team? No. The other person.
Well, there was. Okay, so I'm not including the concept art. I apologize for that.
Oh, you know what? I don't either. Whenever I do.
No, there's Raymond. I think Raymond did
the
but Silvio, I think, was primarily doing I could have this wrong. Silvio, I think, was primarily doing concept for the game. But I know Raymond did a lot of like map paintings to help create. Because somebody's like, "How are you creating these environments?" Like, "Oh, it's all super clever, super smart techniques." Like, there's a map painting, and then there's this, and it's like, "Oh, duh, of course."
Right, yeah.
And then Josh Hareen like put all that stuff together and all those layers effects. So yeah, it was more than 2 people, but like the core like modeling animation was primarily 2 people.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, that's whatever. Even if it's like 4, to do that stuff
unbelievable.
was crazy. And it's all still, you can go to YouTube right now, fire up those videos and be like, that still looks awesome.
It really does. It's amazing. I played through the game on stream a few months ago, and
awesome!
And as I'm playing, I'm like, this still looks so good. Like, and even the HD remaster of the game is good too. If you haven't seen it yet, it's nice.
I saw a little bit of it. I was chatting with Andy Smith and a few others. Like, oh yeah, like I was asking, like I was seeing these things. Like, did we have like depth of field? It's like, yeah, we did. Yeah, depth of field. Like, oh wow.
Yeah.
Like we had like I remember, not to get too technical or whatever, but we were early on, like we had normal maps.
Yeah.
We had per pixel lighting, like right when that thing was taken off. I remember when Charles Bloom, the lead programmer, was explaining to me, we're going to do per pixel lighting. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Those words you just said, I don't know what those are. I'm an old school, like pixel artist. Like so no, we're going to do like, I want you to model a high poly model. I want to see muscles. I want to see veins. I want to see all the structure. And then you're going to give it to me with a low poly model, and I'm going to create these textures. And he's like, just trust me. I'm like, okay. And I've never done high poly modeling before. This is pre-ZBrush, so it's all done by hand. And I did a couple of like rough versions of a hand and like part of Stranger's torso. If you looked at it now, you'd get a big laugh. It's actually even then it was terrible, but it was enough for him. And then he ran it through his tool. And this is back when you had to give it to someone to, nowadays it's so commonplace, right? You can do it on your phone. Then like you had to give it to the engineer, and then he had to run it through some processing. And the first time he showed it off, people were like, "Oh, whoa, this is like," because we had just seen the Doom 3 demo.
Oh yeah.
And Doom 3 was the first big splash for per pixel lighting, and people were like, "Well, this looks like CG. How are you guys doing this?" It's like, "Oh yeah, we create these super high poly models, we sample it, and yada yada yada." Like, well, how do you actually create the high poly model? It seems like so much work because we're used to painting all the textures by hand, and that's when ZBrush was coming around. But anyway, yeah, we had that stuff early, and then we were messing around with like height maps because for us, like making high poly models was pretty tedious. And Charles was talking with guys at Bungie who were making a little game called Halo 2, and Halo 2, they also wanted to do per pixel lighting,
right?
But high poly modeling, for the sheer amount of assets, they didn't have the pipeline for it, so they did all with height maps. And height map, if you're interested, is just a grayscale black and white texture map. It's like a topology map. So white pixels are like further up, and black pixels are receding. So if you imagine that from a 2D point of view, you can kind of get some dimensions. So if you're painting like a white line with some light, and then it's over black, it'll appear like it's raised when you look at it in the engine. So that's the real simplest, silliest explanation for it, but that's the basic idea. So they're using height maps, just painting the textures in Photoshop, so it was much faster. They could get the results they wanted. So he told me that's what we're going to do. It'll be much faster. If he's like, oh, okay. So then I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. I can like bang these things out. But yeah, that was like before that stuff took off. I mean, we were doing so many, like, thinking back on like really cutting edge, crazy things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, so real quick, Katie just asked in the chat, how did you handle all the self-doubt? And do you still feel that way when you start a new job?
All right, so I'm not gonna lie to you. These days, I've been at it for so long. It's in kind of bits and pieces. What happens? Maybe I'll start at the end and I'll work backwards.
Yeah.
You kind of develop, once you've done it long enough, you do develop a confidence in yourself, because once you've done it long enough, you're like, yeah, I've done these things. I've shipped these things. And ultimately, for me, like, yeah, here I achieved the goal. For these games, I did what I felt like was either asked of me or I asked of myself. So I know I can do the work. So I remember that. It's like, okay, well, you may occasionally get those moments of like, maybe I stink at this. But you know what, though? I did do these things. So it offsets it for me almost immediately. Is because I don't know if this is making sense.
Yeah,
we're
like,
good. You remember like, yeah, hey man, I've been doing this long enough. I know what I'm doing. Now early on, it's rough. That self-doubt is like, boy, like how do I? Because I told you that story where I spent all night working on this thing,
right? And
I got the thumbs down the next morning. It's like, oh man, maybe I'm not good at this. But the thing is, and this is so cheesy, it's like so rocky, but it's true. Like you pick yourself up and you got to keep going, because you're gonna get that hit. You're gonna. All right, now we're crossing over to baseball. You're gonna get your base hit, and sometimes it takes a few swings, but you're gonna get it, right? Yeah. And what helped me at Oddworld was I had like those two mentors who helped me along, who, when I needed like a pick me up, they gave me the pick me up, and they also like, well, here's some things you maybe you should focus on this right now. That's the thing I try to do as a lead, is if people are struggling and I see that same self-doubt period they're going through, I'll try to find small things they can actually switch to. Like, hey, let's work on this so you can get that base hit, so you can get that pick me up. Because once you get that first one, you're like, okay,
small wins.
I feel good about myself. Small wins,
yeah,
and it's what it is.
Yeah.
It's a string of small wins, right? And then once you do it long enough, you, at least for me, at least, you remember those wins. So yeah, you'll have those moments where you're like, maybe today is not a good day. People are going to see through me. But you know what? Hey, I'm here.
Right.
I've been doing this. So it takes time to get there, but you can get there.
Nice. All right. So let's see. So I didn't realize you were the only character artist on Stranger. So that means you worked on my very first thing, which was Joe Mama.
Hell yeah. That was me, man.
Yeah.
I can't remember I don't know if Silvio, the concept, one of the two concept artists, well, three if you include Gatam, although he's level designing by that point.
True.
Silvio, I think, did some sketches of possible boss ideas. No, I'm thinking about. I could be wrong. I don't think he did, but I remember you and everyone had ideas for your bosses. Like you had your Mama, and somebody had like the Slag Hunter, like the big game Jack, hunter, and then others had like you guys had these pitches for the characters, and somehow I took these pitches and made these bizarro bosses. Yours was awesome. Like she's got the rolling pin and the wig is popping off. I think we even rigged it so the wig like would fly for her head a little bit as she's running around.
Oh, and she had so good.
We even got. It was crazy. Like it was like cool. Like the tool set, the John Hood, the amazing animator and the technical artist. I believe Academy Award winner now because he worked on Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's awesome.
Yeah. He works at Sony ImageWorks. I'm pretty certain he's now an Academy Award winner.
That's amazing. What a good dude.
Too. Awesome guy. I saw him a few years ago, and it just we picked up right where we left off. It was great. We hadn't seen each other in a long time. And anyway, so he had set up all these amazing tools where like it was very easy to like take an existing character, model a new body for it, and then the skin, all of it would just translate. And like he didn't, I didn't have to task him with like, hey John, can you re-rig this character? It's like, no, just copy weights and you'll get the 99% of the way there, and I'll show you how to fix it. And if you need more help, I can help you. Right?
Yeah.
He had like hype. He had the tools for it, and it was easy to create all these wacky characters. Because like, did you come up with? I don't know if you suggested this or whoever suggested this, but I made a character who was basically the Master Blaster from Thunderdome. It was a big ogre-like guy, and a little guy sat on top of him. Was it you?
That was Steve. I believe that was Steve that came up with that one.
And I don't remember if Steve.
So cool.
It was so cool, but I don't remember if Steve said, "Hey, here's my idea. I want a big guy, a small guy on top of a little guy," or whether I just said, "Hey, let's put." Thinking back on it now, like
it
that
could have gone either way,
worked.
right? No, that's
that shouldn't have worked. And I think I literally I Frankensteined a rig together, and I said, "Hey, John, I just did this," and he's like, "Yeah, sure. As long as the weights are fine, it'll all work, and we'll do an animation set for it." And it was one after the other, after the other, after the other.
Love it.
Yeah.
You prefer environmental art or character?
That's a good question. I've actually shifted around a bit in my career. So I started off with environment art, shifted to character art, which I enjoyed quite a bit. Did that for a while because post-Oddworld, we can revisit this stuff later, but real quickly, Oddworld, I went to Insomniac Games, was a character artist in Insomniac Games in Burbank, California, then went to Bungie. And at Bungie, I transitioned from character to what they call, this happened in Insomniac, I'm sorry. I transitioned from character to what they call hard surface art. And hard surface is like weapons and vehicles and robots. You'd think it's kind of the same. In some places, it's considered the same. Like at my current setup, like that's all one group. But at Bungie, they split it into two groups, especially once they got to Destiny, because the sheer amount of stuff they had to create was so much that to ask one person to manage a team of potentially 20 to 30 people is unreasonable.
Gotcha.
So they split it into two groups, so it's easier to manage and also like just easier to focus.
Yeah.
So they had artists. So I became dedicated to just like on the Destiny games, I just did weapons and vehicles.
Okay.
And then when I worked on the Disintegration game, which we can also talk about later, I was also weapons and vehicles. But now my current project of ProbablyMonsters, I actually have switched back to, or over, it's not really bad, it's all on the same level in my opinion, switched over to environment art. So that's my current position now, is back to world art. And which is more fun, like, they're both really entertaining for different reasons. Like what I like about character art / weapon art is you do develop a almost one-to-one relationship with an animator and a designer. especially with my last gig on Disintegration. I got a good relationship with the animator Matt Lefferts, who I worked with. Their amazing talent, and designers like Ben Rogers and CG Hine, who were really fun to work with, because it's all about, all right, hey guys, here's this one singular weapon. How do we want this thing to work? So it's like, you got to figure out form, you got to figure out function, you got to figure out like how animation works with it, and setting it up so the animator can work with it and the designer can get what they want. And then all of you are together observing the player play with it and seeing, how it works. It's very interactive. And world art is different, where it's like slightly different. It's also collaborative, where you're working as a team with other artists. Like, it's not just you building the level by yourself. Like with weapon art or character art, it can pretty much be you, the one artist, building it. With world art, it's very collaborative, where it's like, for example, my current job, we have like the level artist / architect who kind of figures out the space and the composition. And then my team, which I'm the lead of, is like a palette team. We take all the individual chunks and then and detail them out. And then we all have to work together so that we're getting the results that we want. So it's like this fun back and forth. So it's fun for a different reason, but it's also still collaborative. And also you develop a good relationship with a level designer, because they also want to make sure that the experience is smooth and they have good composition. And especially if it's like multiplayer, like, is it too noisy? Is it not noisy enough? Are you obscuring objectives? Is it clear what the player does? Is it recognizable? It's a thing that Bungie was really good about with their levels, is like they had these landmarks that you could remember, like, oh yeah, all right, go to the flag's over at the windmill. So everyone knows exactly where to go. So it's fun for that reason, or that sort of collaboration. So
I want to elaborate on something real quick.
Yes,
because
please.
I've worked with hundreds of artists in my 20 years in this career. Okay. And almost to a person, someone is generally really good at either environment art or, or props or characters, right?
Sure.
Now, you are capable of doing all those on a high level, right? So now I want to make sure, like, that you're an anomaly, my friend. Like,
lucky. I always call myself lucky. Well, sorry. Before I start talking.
No, seriously, because I mean, the people that do it really, really well tend to kind of focus on one or the other. You don't often see people jump around between those, but I've seen your work, right? And I've seen that you're capable of all of those. So I mean, I just wanted to say, like, don't like diminish the fact that that's a big deal, right? Like, being able to do that.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. For me, this is so maybe simple. It's fun, like, for me, I don't really get into like focusing on one thing. For me, I like the opportunity to change it up.
Yeah.
Like when I switched to my current job, I switched to world art. To someone else who's been doing weapon art for a bunch, they might be like, oh, well, I don't want to do world art. But like, for me, like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome. Because everything is like, I like, for me, I love to absorb, I love to learn things. And that's why I've enjoyed that switching, because it's new things to learn. And I genuinely mean that. Like, it's like, oh yeah, like what, because you get to expose yourself to different parts of the project. So I'll give you an example that was really fun for me when I worked on Destiny. Like early on Destiny, I was doing weapon art, vehicle art. And then at a certain point we were doing, actually it was the demo for their first E3 demo, the grand reveal of Destiny. And the world artist came to our team, the hard surface art team, said, hey, we need some help with various props and set dressing. And could you guys help us build some ruined tanks and ruined cars and ruined X, Y, and Z? And when I heard that, someone else might be like, no, man, I want to work on Thorn. I want to work on, my thing. I was like, no, yeah, that sounds great. I want to help you out because I can see you need help. And two, that sounds interesting. I want to see how I want to learn these things. So me and one other artist jumped on board. We had a great time working with them. We did all kinds of fun, cool stuff. And then afterwards, I asked the world artist, who is helping you with these tasks, these requests normally? I said, nobody. We're just hoping that someone's free. And I said, okay, there's an opportunity here. So I pitched to the company, hey, give me 3 artists and I will form a props team. And we are going to support all the world art and the cinematics, and we'll build whoever is not filling that gap, we're going to fill that gap for you and help you out. And that was a good, decent chunk of Destiny's. I spent a couple of months on that team, and that was a riot. It was a blast because I got to work with so many different people that I wasn't working with before. And I got to work with level artists and level designers, people who were my friends, but now get to really work together as coworkers, as collaborators. And it was just super fun to see what people needed and also learn new techniques. And that's for me is kind of the core. Is like I like to just absorb new stuff and help people out. And it sounds a little altruistic, but it's for me it's true. It's like, especially now that I'm much older and have done a lot of like leadership, is like for me it's like it's less about like getting to do the hero piece as helping other artists get the job done. You know, if like I can come up with some workflow improvements that you for this is really important for me. Is like you can go home at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whenever, get home to the family, or it doesn't even matter if you have a family. Just get home and have. Oh, sorry.
What?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I hit enter on my keyboard, and all of a sudden I was hearing myself. That was weird. So what I meant to say, sorry, before I interrupted myself with my klutziness, is help people get home, you know, and just have work-life balance. If whatever I can do to help them, like that's the stuff I'm doing right now. Is like, what kind of improvements can I come up with that help the other artists on my team get their job done?
Nice.
Yeah. Try to anyway.
Right. Man, so we had another question here. When it comes to environment arts, is that only the nature type assets, or does that include buildings as well?
Early in my career, I did some nature type assets. I did do some nature, a little bit of nature stuff in Destiny, like rocks and what have you, but primarily it's been more buildings, what I would call like hard surfacey kind of content, whether it be structures, things of that nature. So it's more structure. Yeah.
Would you? So then let's talk about a Destiny level specifically. Would there be someone else who handled the terrain, and then you would go in and build the building? Did you build it in Spot, or did you build the asset separately and they put it in there into the terrain?
In those instances, they would either get a mock-up, because you have to get the scale correct, right?
Right.
And then here's the key interaction points. So like we did some of the interactables in Destiny. So the interactables, they'd be roughly mocked up. Like, all right, so in the strike, you got to go up and activate this thing, and then you got to stand there for 10 minutes while 100 things spawn on you, right?
Right.
And
1,000 times.
So 1,000 times. Hey, and it worked. It worked.
Absolutely.
So they had they would mock it up, right? And it'd be a real simple shape, and then you have either you'd have a concept or some reference of like, well, here's kind of what we're thinking. Because one thing that also can happen in world art, less so in like weapon and vehicle art or character art, because those assets are singular, you can get usually, and this is very broad here, is like you can get a very specific concept. Like what I did, I got a chance to model one of the exotics for Destiny, Thorn, right? I got an explicit concept for Thorn. Like, okay, it looks like it's a pistol. Looks like it's carved out of rock. Okay, cool. Revolver. But then for some of those things like interactables in Destiny, I would get a couple of different concepts, like the wording concepts, like, hey, here's some sketches of like other stuff we've made or references. So I would sort of like cobble it together. Like, okay, what about this? And as long as I'm within the footprint, at least, that's the starting point. And then it's a back and forth between like your level artist or art direction or is this thing in the ballpark?
Right.
Is it working?
Gotcha.
Which is a different way to work. It's fun because it requires more of yourself to like your more artistic interpretation and ideas, concept skills.
Right, and like I was just saying in the chat, it's different depending on the company that you're at. Like what level of like some at EA when we were on open world games, we had like dozens of artists doing different pieces for each part of the city. Like it just kind of depends on how many people you have, how granular it needs to get. At Oddworld, like when I built out a level, I built everything in a rough form, and then you guys helped me make it pretty, right? So it was like that. But the thing that I think a lot of level designers or up and coming level designers don't understand is it was not me just off on my own being like, here's my vision for this thing that an artist is going to make nice. It was, hey, let's talk about this before anything happens. What's our joint vision for this thing? Where are we going with this? What kind of things do I need to consider before I put the first block in the world?
Exactly.
And then artists there, like I worked with Jeremy French quite a bit, and it was like, he had to, make the shitty things I put in the world, he had to make look great. Right. So, and I had to make it to where it was easy for him to do so, or as easy as I could make it for him to do so. So it was always a joint thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very key. It's important thing, especially for the folks getting into the field, is that collaboration is key. It's a thing that, especially when you're looking for work, that's part of that interview process is seeing, are you someone who likes to work with other people?
Yeah.
Do you have good communication skills? Do we sense that you take good art direction notes? Can you think on your feet? That was always a thing I always look for, is like, especially for artists, like I like to see if you have personal art. It's not required, but personal art gives me some insight into your creative process. Like, it doesn't necessarily, if you don't have personal art or if it's not very good, it doesn't necessarily mean at the end of the world. Because like I can at least get some sense that you like to think, but sometimes it might be like I've worked with people like this where like they require so much hand holding and they need an explicit concept. They need to be told what to do. And you can't really let them run on their own because either they don't want to do it, or if they do, it's like you end up with something that's just not, that's not really solid. Right. It's a tricky one, but you definitely got to be able to communicate. That's your key. Like just going off and doing your dream, your idea is not really what games are about.
There's place for that, right? Like you generally get like, here's my box to work within, and that box can be super tiny or it can be bigger, right? And you've got to understand how much freedom do I have within that,
Yes,
and that changes depending on the stage of the project, the layout of the current project overall, like the team that you're on, like. And so like whenever people ask questions like this, I always want to add these caveats because it's different everywhere, right? What we're talking about is your experience, what you've seen, and it's going to be a little bit different. And even in the places you've worked, I'm sure it's been vastly different, the process overall.
Yeah. So my last gig at V1 Interactive, I was there for about 4 years. It was super fun. That group, we didn't have a concept artist, or we don't. They're still going. I'm not there. There is not a concept artist on staff, and that's not really necessarily a mistake. It's just the decision that the creative director chose to make. And what it ended up being, which is really cool, was that the artists were empowered to create our own stuff, and working with the creative director who's also the art director, and who's been an art director for 20 something years at Bungie. So he knows what he's talking about. He knows how to work people to help shape their vision. So like a lot of the stuff I got to make for Disintegration, is like a lot of the vehicles and all the vehicles, all the weapons. I got to like just normally I wouldn't be concepting those. There would be a separate concept artist designing those. I get to design those myself, and it was a super fun experience to do that. But it also, it's tricky. You don't always have hits. You have to be able. If people say, "Hey, I'm just not liking it," even if you feel in your heart, "No, this was cool," it's like, yeah, but the group's not digging it, man. You got to move on. You got to let it go. Yep. And it does require that. It's easy to get hung up. Like, no, but this is my idea, and you can, people can get hurt feelings, and that happens. But you have to get a thick skin when you get to that. When you're doing that sort of stuff.
Same for design as well. From my experience,
sure, like probably more so. Yeah. Well, more so, because people are straight up going to tell you, right? Like, man, this level stinks.
That's dog shit.
Like, yeah. It's like, all right.
But that was my favorite part of Oddworld, though, honestly, was we would do our level reviews, and I would see something that Steve had done, and we would all step back, play it, critique it together, and everyone would be like, I can do something better than that. And then we would spend a week doing something better than that. We would show it, and then somebody like, oh, no, I can do something better than that. And it was a constant, great competition where everybody just kept trying to get better, and it was
You could feel it. You could feel
amazing.
It. My favorite thing was every morning I'd go to Gatom's desk, sit with him, and he was working on his minecart level.
Yep.
And I sat with him from the start when it was just a rough idea, when the engine he was told the engine will not do this. And he said, no, the engine will do this. And just watching, and I'd play it. I'd tell him, there are days I'd do like, Gatom, it stinks. I tell him to his face, I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't want to tell you this, but this stinks. And he wouldn't be like, you know what? Get out of here. Never come to my desk again. He was such a, he is, I mean, he's a super amazing veteran talent.
Yeah.
He would just be like, okay, all right, let's see what I can do. And I come back, it's like, it stinks less. Right. And, all you guys were like that. I'd play your guys' stuff. And I remember I'd play your guys' stuff and I couldn't bite my tongue. There'd be times I'm like, I'm sorry, Jameson, this stinks.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all right. And none of you guys were like, screw you. It was all, we'll go back to the lab, cook it up again, try it again.
Yeah.
Lab, cook it up. That was a really poor choice of words.
What were we doing? That's funny.
But anyway, yeah, you guys would just make the edits and changes and come back and play test. Artists are terrible about that. Like they'll get the feedback like, hey, I just don't like the way this looks. All right, fine. And you'll try to find a way to like trick people into like really liking it. Like you'll make it something weird and like you switch it back to what you had originally, and they're like, oh yeah, this is much better. It's like, I tricked you. But then I slightly kid. No. Even as artists, you definitely have to be able to, because speaking of art, like critique, I had this, that was the boot camp for me, was having Lauren Lanning as your first art director.
Oh my gosh.
Like, since then I've had people like, man, I hope I wasn't too rough. I'm like, dude, there's nothing you can say to me that he has not said to me.
Right.
Like, he's torn me limb from limb in front of people. Like, this, why'd you make, he will like the back in the Oddworld days, he would like point to something like, why did you make this? Why'd you make it? I thought it was like, well, it stinks. And he would like rip it up and right in front of your face. And yeah, is it harsh? Sure. It could have been, I don't know. But I felt maybe other artists might tell me different from the Oddworld days. I felt stronger for it because at least at the bare minimum, it thickened my skin. So any further like critiques I got, I'm like, oh yeah, okay. You don't like it? I'll change it. Because after that, it's like, okay, everything else is just, child's play. It's nothing.
Oh man. Did I ever, do you remember, well, I mean, obviously you remember Brad.
Oh yeah.
And
I just saw him recently.
Oh, did you really? That's awesome. My favorite story from him was the time that he had something up on, and I know that you guys would, when Lauren would come through, you guys would turn off your monitors.
Yep.
Because you didn't want him to see something and critique.
I think there was a signal. Someone, it would like, did you play The Last of Us Part 2?
Not yet.
So there's a whole gag in The Last of Us Part 2 where like characters like whistle.
Uh-huh.
And it's like the way they get people, they try to find people. So it'd be like, I can't whistle.
Right.
And like, oh, and like, and you like, and like you cover all your stuff up because you don't want them to see it. Oh, that was a whole thing. That was a whole thing.
But he told me this story once where Lauren came through and there was something on his screen and he was like, Lauren says,
I think I remember this.
This needs to be a little bit more green. Right. Yeah. Like this area, we need to improve this, make it a little more green. And Brad's like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, I'll take a look at that. A couple of hours passed. He had been doing something else entirely. The screen had not changed. Lauren walks back through and goes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. That would happen every now and again. That's right. That's right.
Now that's not generally what Lauren is like, but that makes me
no,
laugh.
but it's just that's I've experienced that other places where I'd get a critique about something, and I'll be frank with you, there are times where I'm like, I'm not changing this because this is super subjective, and I know we're gonna go down this rabbit hole because maybe for whatever reason what I had before was already approved and was fine, and this is just whatever. So I'll leave it and act like I changed it. And then I've had people come back later, just like that story, and be like, "Oh, that's great, I love it." It's like, I didn't do anything.
I mean, that's what you dream of, right? Like, it got better without me having to touch it.
Yes,
like,
yeah, I didn't have to do anything. It's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Oh man, so many good stories from that time.
It was a fun period, man. Like I said, like that was like school part 2. It was such a learning experience for all of us. Stranger's Wrath, like we got to see that crazy thing from beginning to end. And just also even outside of that was fun. You know, I miss so much. I miss golfing with you because you introduced me. I haven't.
Right.
I won't lie to you. I have not done it much since Oddworld. I remember like one day you invited me to go do 9 holes with you. You had the clubs, and I never tried golfing before. And you walked me through it. I was like, that was so fun. It was like a Sunday or a Saturday.
Yeah.
It was so relaxing. And I think you said, or maybe you may have taken me to a sporting goods store. Like they had it on like a club set on sale for like 50% off. Like I bought myself a pair of clubs.
Yeah.
Like, a set of clubs. I'm like, I'm that guy now. And it became every weekend, right?
I forgot about that. Like that.
That was so much fun. I have such fond memories of that.
Oh.
And you know, was a funny one from that was, well, there's 2 funny stories. One, I'm pretty certain you were there for all of them. So one was, sadly, you know, years later, this is what, 2005, spring 2005, Oddworld was closing its doors.
Right.
And I remember Stranger's Wrath had shipped, sadly did not do well, although we were all proud of it.
And highly rated.
Highly rated, yeah. And to this day, I still have people saying we talk about, hey, where are you, what you worked on? Well, I worked on this game. I'm sure no one remembers called Stranger's Wrath. Like, hey, I remember that game. Like, really? Yeah. Oh, I love that game. Like, okay, fine, great.
Nobody bought it.
Anyway,
then,
so yeah. Thank you. Where were you? 130,000 people bought it. Anyway, if you remember, Jameson, it was a few months later. The company was in that weird period of like, what's going to happen? Are we going to move to San Francisco? No one knows what's going on. And it was clear that the company was unfortunately going to close.
Right.
So one weekend, I decided, okay, I'm going to go to the office and put my portfolio together. The thing is, we regularly played golf.
Right.
So Ryan Ellis calls me on the phone and says, "Where are you?" I'm like, and he said, "We're all at the golf course." And I'm like, I got a thing. I'm not feeling good. I got a thing. I got to wash my hair. I gave him a bunch of excuses. And he's like, "You're full of beans. I'm coming over." I'm like, "No, you're not." Like, "I'm coming over." So I think you guys, I don't know if you were, I think you were there because we all played golf together.
Yeah.
There's a group playing golf. He shows up at my house and he goes, "Okay, I know what you're doing. You're working on your portfolio." He saw right through me. He's like, let's go to the office. I'll help you." So he helped me put my portfolio together.
Oh man.
Because so we played golf that often. Like if you missed it, something was wrong.
That's true.
And the other one, which I thought was, I don't know, I thought this was kind of funny because it felt so like Hollywoody, was, you remember when Oddworld folded, they did right by us. I don't know how you felt about it.
I thought so. Yeah.
Okay. I felt they did right by us. They brought in that group to help everyone find work.
Yeah.
They gave everyone the computers for their desks. They said, "Hey, take it. Take it all."
The chair, the Aeron chair.
It's a great chair.
Mine broke like 3 months ago. We had that thing forever.
I had it till when I first moved to the Seattle area, and then it broke. It was a great chair.
Yeah, they're so good.
And I looked into buying one. That's an expensive chair.
Yeah, they're like $1,500 or something.
Yeah, like they're not cheap. I was like, "Oh, it's like $200, right?" No, you get it from Office Depot. No, it's like a $1,500, $2,000 chair. Yeah. So anyway, I thought this story was kind of funny. So after they hooked us up with that management group to help us find jobs, I felt like everyone was always all of a sudden always on their cell phones because their agents were always calling us and telling us, "Hey, okay, there's a position at EA, there's a position here." And we're like, sign me up, get me the interview. So I remember one day we were on the golf course, and every few minutes, one of us has to take our phone out like we're Hollywood agents. Like, no, I don't want to do that. But get me Bungie. You hang up the phone. I just thought that was so funny. I sure.
Man,
that Bungie or Insomniac. I don't want to hear anything else.
That was such an actually amazing time for me because I had already been through 2 companies that had shut down, and I had no assistance in finding another job at that point. And so when this one happened, this was the first time for me where now people were coming to me. Where I'm like,
that must have been really cool.
It was an amazing experience.
Because that was my only experience. I've been really, knocks on all the wood in my career. That's been my only layoff. And it was like, to that company's credit, really to that company's credit, they took care of everybody. They didn't just leave you out hanging out to dry, because we all would, we would read the horror stories about like, hey, we're all going to have an offsite meeting, and meanwhile the building's being locked and you can't go back in. They did right by us, and mildly funny story. So I told you how like that one weekend when I felt like the company was going to fold, I put my stuff together, and the following Monday I went to go see Mike Reifers, awesome guy, and I said, "Mike, sorry, I'm leaving." He's like, "Oh, okay. You know what? I understand. It's a weird time right now. Can you wait by your desk and let me, I want to talk to the owners, and then I can announce your departure, whatever, some stuff." I was like, fine. So I go back to my desk. I have World of Warcraft installed, so I'm just gonna I'm playing World of Warcraft. Whatever, it's over. And then later that day, they called us up front and said, "Hey, studio's closing." So I quit and I was fired all the same day.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah.
So
and I remember there's the slightly funny part of that story was like, there's the bar around the corner. I remember this. The day we were working on some project whose name escapes me, that the deal fell through. It was gonna be the post-Stranger game.
You don't remember the name? You really don't?
No.
The Brutal Ballad of
Fangus Clot.
Yeah.
Wow. Good memory, dude. Once you start talking, it all just like the memory cap popped. The Brutal Ballad of Fangus Clot.
What a name.
Right. I don't even remember what that thing was going to be, but it was something. I kind of remember some really cool Raymond Swanlin like key art, but that's all I can remember.
I don't remember a lot about it.
I don't think it got very far. I remember it was whatever was going to happen. The project that was dead. So we all went to that Irish pub around the corner. Mm-hmm. We all sat down. It's like, "Drinks, please." And like, "What happened?" It's like, "Our project got canned." Like, "Oh, sorry, guys." And then cut to like a day later, company closes, and we all went right back. It's like, what's going on, guys? We all got fired.
Yeah.
And everyone, I remember that was a long night of revelry of just. Yeah. I don't remember how I got home. It was.
Those are fun nights.
Those were, as sad as it was a fun night. And also like you said, they they took care of us, so it wasn't like depressing. It was like, all right, we're moving on. Like,
Yeah.
we're not going to be together anymore. Although a lot of us went to Insomniac Games. A lot of you guys went to Electronic Arts.
Yeah.
It all it did. It's like, we learned then, right? Like, this industry is really small.
Yeah.
You're going to circle around people often, which is the other thing for people get into the industry is don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
It comes back on you, man.
It's so small of an industry. You will come across those people again.
And if you are, you have an unfortunate relationship, it can backfire. People. Hopefully, it's nothing unfair. That'd be terrible. But
right.
I've had people who just, I've seen like, that person was not all that nice of a person, and X, Y, or Z. It's like, then people kind of remember these things. Memories are long in the games industry.
And that's the thing. Like, I tell people, whenever I'm looking to fill a position or even just recommend somebody or whatever, if the person who's talking to me has worked with them and can give me any positive information about them, that's more than I have from any other resume in a queue. Right. So like that is a great positive way. But on the other side of that, if they give me any negative about someone, then there's a chance that someone in this stack is going to be better. So like it's real easy, really. And it's not vindictive most of the time, hopefully, but it's just the way you treat people. Like, when you work with people, it's real easy. It's real easy to get a sense of what kind of person you are. Right. Or at least the person you are being. So you got to be careful with that kind of thing.
Yeah. I've had interviews where like the person may have been perfectly talented, had the great skills, but they spent the interview, say, trash talking their former employer, or a person they worked with. It's like, well, that's weird. I'm going to, are you going to be, because you want to watch out for toxic personalities, right? Like, if we bring you on board, are you going to be a toxic personality? Like, you can't, that might be, I know that can sound unfair. It's like, well, they're just venting. Yeah. But professionally, you can vent. Nothing wrong with venting. Nothing wrong with like feeling upset about things. Certainly, But when you're trying to get another gig, that's how you're initially presenting yourself. You got to take notice, Yeah. You can't help it. You can't help but take notice.
So we have a question. Have you ever had to work directly with someone you thought was a dick? I know I have, but it was not an Oddworld, that's for sure. But
no, I've been really fortunate.
That's good.
I've been really lucky. All the people I've worked with are all, I honestly can't think of many people in the industry where like I've worked with who are like, man, I would never work with that person again.
Yeah.
Like, I've been real fortunate that they've all been, nice people and people that I've just really enjoyed spending time with,
Yeah.
I've worked with one or two people who might be a little much personality wise, but they don't mean, they mean well. They're just, that's just the way they're wired. And it's really more just maybe a reflection on me, how I perceive it. But they're all perfectly nice people, know. So I've been fortunate that way.
You've also worked at some great companies, right? And
I've been lucky too. Yeah.
And actually, let's talk about that. So as Oddworld was ending, I did not realize that you already had another offer. So that's really cool.
Well, it's not immediately. So when Oddworld ended, right, I went to the same loop as everyone else. Like, okay, there was that thing that's called DAM, like, and they're trying to find a job. So I went on a lot of interviews.
Oh, wait. So you had just decided you were leaving, not that you had something else.
Oh, yeah. No. So what happened was, Ryan Ellison gave a presentation. Well, it was a presentation we're talking about. He called a meeting saying, hey, the Fangus game, brutal ballad game, that deal is over. So we're going to figure out the next steps. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. The company's toast.
Right.
Like it stinks. It was fun. I like working here, but it's time to move on. So I started putting my stuff together. I hadn't applied yet. And then once the everything folded, like immediately, then once that whole DAM thing started, the digital artist management.
Yeah.
So I was applying with everybody else. Cause you remember, like I think you were already working for you got the job at Electronic Arts really quick.
It was pretty quick. I went to Zipper and and I had offers from Zipper and EA, but I went to EA to work with Mark and Eric Yo.
Yeah. Cause I don't know if you remember, there was that event where EA sent like a limo to Oddworld to take devs to Redwood Shores. Do you remember that?
I think I must have already been there.
you were definitely there because it's the next part of the story. Because I missed that limo and I drove up there.
Oh,
and I met you at the front door.
Yeah. That's right. Oh my gosh, I
you
totally
walked
forgot
me in
about
and
that.
you showed me. Yeah, you walked me in and showed me around.
Yeah.
And that was a trip because like, whoa, there's Oddworld, and then there's Electronic Arts.
You walk into the front door of that place, it is
and
like
it's
walking into a cathedral.
There's 100-foot Michael Jordan like in motion staring at you, slam dunking on you, and you're like, whoa, this is crazy, man. This is the big time. And like they took us to this room where it was like a spread that I swear to God went forever. You're like, okay, this is some serious business.
Yeah, it was. They talked to me in dollars when which was nice.
Yeah, that must have been awesome. That must have been great.
Yeah, I got a significant raise, that's for sure.
yeah. That was the other thing, right? Oddworld, God bless them. They did not pay, unfortunately, all that great. I mean,
it was
the cost of living.
Good. It was good.
It was fine.
Great.
It was fine for where we were
Yeah.
in our experience level and the cost of living. I don't think I really suffered.
No.
But definitely leaving that, definitely saw a bump. Yeah, I interviewed at a couple of places. Let's see if I can remember, because I did a lot of driving around. So the background to it, if you want to call it that, is the place I wanted to hear from more than anything else was Insomniac Games.
Okay.
That was my dream studio. I love Ratchet and Clank games, still do. Really wanted to work there so bad because I looked at their stuff like that's what I want to do. Even towards the end of my time on Stranger's Wrath, I was thinking what might be next post Stranger. Post-Oddworld was like, I'd love to go work at Insomniac Games. So a lot of the characters I was creating were very Ratchet and Clanky, just because I was looking at their stuff a lot in the hopes that like in my portfolio, maybe somehow, there might be a chance. So anyway, while I'm hoping, like, and Mike Reifers, he knew people at Insomniac Games, like, well, I'm trying to get a hold of him, but go on the interviews, listen to the recruiter, they're going to help you, but maybe it comes together. So I interviewed Electronic Arts, and it was for Sims, I think.
Yep, that's
and
the project
then I interviewed.
I was on.
That's Roger, you were on.
Yep.
Then I interviewed at Cryptic. Remember Cryptic Studios in Los Gatos?
Yeah.
I interviewed there.
That was they were an MMO studio, right?
Yeah. I can't remember what it was for. I think I got an offer from them, and then
that was City of Heroes.
It was it was going to be City of Heroes. And I'm trying to remember. Oh man, I went to Zipper, interviewed at Zipper.
Yeah.
And I think I got a job offer from them. And then you know what? I'm getting old, man. Like I can't remember what the other interviews were, if there were any others. But anyway, what happened though is like I was actually getting kind of frustrated because I'm like, not at the process, but I'm like kind of like, I really want to go work at Insomniac, And I'll be frank with you, Jameson, I didn't want to work at The Sims, even though it was looking likely I was going to be working at The Sims. I really want to work at Insomniac Games. And then finally the heavens parted, and I got contacted by the HR from Insomniac Games, and I like just jumped on the thing. They sent me an art test, and they flew me down there. And what actually happened, I discovered later, was Rich McCain. Do you remember him? He was the animator we worked with at Oddworld, who I work with now at ProbablyMonsters.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, he's the animation director at the studio I work for called Firewalk.
Nice.
We can talk about a little bit, whatever I can say. So Rich was good friends with the character art lead in Insomniac Games, Dave Gurton, and he apparently talked me up. So when I went down there, they said, "Hey, you know what? We liked your art test. We just want to see if you're a cool guy. You're obviously a great guy. The job is yours if you want it." I'm like, oh my God. I practically started doing backflips, and they actually ended the interview early. And they actually, they had a limo take me to the airport, and I was just like on cloud nine. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. And what's fun about Insomniac was that also, it wasn't just me. It was me, Jack Mayer, Mark Hernandez, Mark Lee, Jamie. I can never pronounce Jamie's last name properly. McMenemy. All five of us were going to be down there.
Right.
And also John was moving down there as well to go work in the movie business. And and then that's what led to Insomniac. And it wasn't long. I wasn't there that long. I was there
just there like a year or so, right? Like
it was like late spring 2005 to around October-ish 2006.
Okay.
So, but it was it's actually what Insomniac Games. They're not like this anymore. But back then they shipped a game a year. Because those Ratchet and Clank games, they did one a year. That's just the thing they did. And then while I was there, I was only there for that period of time. I shipped 2 games. I shipped Ratchet Deadlocked. I worked on the last few months of that, which is the very last Ratchet and Clank game for the PS2, which was like, I was happy to get a Ratchet and Clank game on my resume.
That was awesome.
That was super fun. I'd even got one asset into Ratchet and Clank Next, Tools of Destruction. It was the first Ratchet and Clank for PS3.
Yep.
I got one robot into that game.
I played
it was
through
the very
that.
last thing I made for them.
That one had co-op, if I remember right. I think I played it through that with Kian, but
They may have.
I think.
Yeah, there's so many of them I don't remember. Although I've played every single one of them. You think I remember?
Well, that's why they run together, though. If you played all of them.
Yeah, I know. And then I also worked on the launch title that they did for PS3 called Resistance: Fall of Man. You remember that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now Mark Hernandez was there for that, right?
Yeah, Mark Hernandez was, I think, gameplay programmer. Mark Lee was an engineer, graphics programmer. Jack was a level designer on Resistance. Jamie worked on sound and music.
Right.
And then I was character art.
Okay.
And like I said, on that project, I started off doing characters, which is what I was doing in Ratchet and Clank. And then I transitioned to purely focusing on weapons and vehicles. Because how that came about was they just asked, because all that stuff was being done by the character team anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And they were trying to figure out who's good at what. So they just randomly assigned me a weapon. And I did it, and they really liked it. Like, you got a real eye for this. This is like you're super fastest. Because I was actually struggling with the character art, especially because that was the transition to more CG quality, sculpts and like anatomy. And I was struggling. My stuff wasn't it wasn't good, and I was super slow. And I got through this assignment, and then the next assignment was this weapon, and I knocked it out of the park. I did it really fast, and it was super high quality. And Damon Unizelli, who is the character art lead, very good friend of mine, like he's one of them, like I consider one of the more important people I've worked with. Like this guy was like a real mentor. He taught me tons. I'm still close with him to this day. Just an amazing artist. Like that experience working on Resistance was easily one of the most important experiences of my life, because just the artists I worked with, about the stuff that I learned, it was almost like school part 2. Like it prepared me for the future. And he was just an amazing person to just leech off of and learn from. All those artists were. And then anyway, so that he's like, "Oh, you're going to focus on weapons and vehicles. Clearly this is your strong suit." And then I just ran with it. And then that was just a blast. And I'll tell you a little story about Insomniac Games. Talk about imposter syndrome. So at Oddworld, I had the imposter syndrome because the art was so good. You told that story like, oh my God, they're going to fire me in a week. It kicked into a level so high in Insomniac Games on my first day that I would genuinely thought I'm screwed. Because I walk in the door and I say this with so much love, but it's just my honest feeling, like that group is probably amongst the most talented group of artists I've ever worked with, because they were so well-rounded. They're awesome sculptors, modelers, and they all could draw like you would not believe.
Huh.
And I'm looking at all the concept art was their concept art. Like at Oddworld, someone else did the concept art.
Right.
We kind of got ourselves into that. This happens in the industry. It happens where there's the concept artist, and then there is the 3D artist, world artist, what have you. We just do the 3D part. You figure out the design. At Insomniac, they're doing both. And I'm walking in there like, I'm screwed. I can't draw like these guys. And I'm going to get fired. Like they'll ask me to design something, even though I of course should have been telling myself, they never asked to see your drawing portfolio. They don't care. It's fine. But I'm totally thinking I'm screwed. And the thing that really scared me was, the cover art for those games, it was all painted by hand. And I remember Greg Baldwin, another awesome artist I work with, he was saying, "Oh yeah, we all take turns painting the cover for each Ratchet and Clank game." I'm like, I'm screwed. They're gonna ask me to paint one, and it's gonna be just like stick figures, and I'm just completely boned. There's no way. This is over. This is for sure. It's over. And of course, it didn't happen. It was all great. They're like, "Yeah, of course we know you can draw." Like, well, for starters, like you can draw, you just don't try. And they actually encouraged me to draw and stuff like that. But also, like, we know your strength, your strengths and weaknesses. So calm down. But yeah, that was that. So it was short lived. It was that year and change, almost 2 years. But that was just a hoot. That was a blast. I made tons of content, and it was a good time. It was a lot of work, but Insomniac is one of those studios. I was actually sad to leave Insomniac, but I honestly wasn't super happy living in Los Angeles.
Okay.
It just, the city didn't work for me, maybe
I felt that way too when I was there.
Yeah. I think you just have to have the right mindset. And sorry,
no,
I just couldn't get into the swing of it. I don't know why. I think this is before my wife and before my family. So like, if I could transplant my family and my wife there now, it's somehow remix time would have been fine. I would have stayed probably.
Right.
but I was just like, I'm not digging it. I don't. Then what happened was, Bungie wasn't on my radar. I was just curious to leave. And the thing that popped up with our friend was, have you ever thought about Seattle? From a good friend of mine, Mike Haney, amazing talent who I met at Insomniac Games, and still a very good friend of mine to this day. And the two of us were like, we both were sick of Los Angeles, liked working for Insomniac, sick of Los Angeles. What about Seattle? So what we decided to do was end like around Labor Day 2006, Labor Day weekend. We said, let's go visit Seattle just for fun. We had enough people up there. We had places to stay. I visited Gatam at Valve. I actually interviewed at Valve, which was, that's a tough experience, man.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
That is the roughest interview I've ever had. So just real quick backstory on how that came about. So yeah, the two of us decided to go up there and like, hey, while we're up here, let's take our portfolios. Let's do some interviewing. Let's see what we know. So I had been talking to Gatam's like, hey, I want to come up there and visit, and we're going to check out PAX. This is the early days of PAX, Petty Arcade Expo, and we're going to visit. He's like, hey, you're interested in interviewing at Valve? I'm like, yeah.
Right.
So send me your stuff and let's see what happens. I'm like, okay. So I sent them stuff, and then they were interested enough to want to bring me in. So yeah, we went up there, and I remember like when Mike and I got off the plane, and, Seattle's radically different than Los Angeles. We instantly felt like, oh man, we got to move here. This is so much nicer. Now, granted, this is summer. Seattle on a good summer weekend is very seductive and very deceptive. You're like, oh, the weather's like not very warm. It's sunny. It's so nice. And it's green and there's water. I got to live here. I got to live here. So we were totally seduced by Seattle. So we got up there, and then, we hung out with good friends from Sucker Punch and ArenaNet and all this sort of stuff. It was fun just visiting all these other devs. And then, while I was up there, I went interviewed at Valve, and that was the toughest interview I've ever experienced. That was real, like, you want to feel like you're a fool. That's the interview to do it. And and it was I wouldn't have hired me because Valve's particular, they're looking for a certain thing, and I clearly didn't have it. And but that was an intense experience, because part of it was, and I think they'll be okay to be talking about it. Part of the interview process was a design portion where you like design a game because they want to see your design skills. And I thought, I played plenty of games. I could totally do this, and I could not do it, clearly. It did not go well. But whatever. It was a fun experience. I'm glad it happened. But the interesting thing that happened was, as soon as I got off the plane to get there, Ryan Ellis calls me up. Art lead, our good friend.
Oh, yeah.
From Oddworld, and also from Vancouver Film School. I go back a really long way.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, nice. We went to school together.
Yeah.
So me and him and Mark, we go back a long way. So he calls me up and said, hey, so you're in town. Let's get together. We'll hang out. Are you interested in talking to Bungie? I'm like, yeah. Can you do that? Because Bungie notoriously is so closed. It's hard to just, it's tough because they're also, at the time, they're part of the Microsoft mothership. So they're really sealed off. So like, just trying to get in there, get a contact. I didn't have a contact. Like with Valve, I knew Gatam. I knew him well. I had someone who could like, oh yeah, take a look at this guy's stuff. Not so with Bungie. But Ryan pops up because Ryan knew some programmers there from some of the external like community, game dev community stuff. He happened to know people. So he just passed my stuff along, and it ended up on the desk of Shakai Wang, who is, he's an art director at Bungie now. He's been there forever. Amazing, amazing talent. A super awesome guy. He was the 3D art lead there, and he saw it, and he said, oh, okay. This is exactly what we're looking for. This guy does like robots, and this is Halo. Is he in town? Bring him in. So Ryan actually took me to the Bungie office after I talked with Shakai Wang on the phone out in Kirkland. We used to be in Kirkland. They're in Bellevue now. In Kirkland, Washington. And he drops me off, and I kind of get out. I'm like, I'm not really certain where I'm supposed to go. So I walk up to the door, and Bungie is like secured like Fort Knox because they're in the middle of Halo 3. And no one just walks in there, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden I realized I don't remember the name of the guy I just talked to because he said it so fast. Hey, this is Sky Wang. And I like, yeah, great. Yeah, let's talk. And I get there. I'm like, oh, because you had to hit a buzzer. You had to talk to security guard, big, stern security guard. It's like, who are you here for? I'm like, oh, crap. I don't remember his name. And in my head, this flashes in like 30 seconds. This is it. This is the end of my Bungie experience. I'm almost in the door, and I forget the dude's name, and I do my best like scramble, and I'm like, it's God, I'm sorry. I think he is like Chinese American. I think he's the head of the 3D department. He's like, This guy took pity on me, and he figured out it was Shikai, and Shikai comes out. He's like, hey, man, why don't you just give my name? So everything was great from there. He walked me in. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
and I
man.
remember walking in and be like, oh, snap, because I just seen the announcements for Halo 3. And that was kind of like similar to the Electronic Arts thing of like, I thought Insomniac was big. Now this is like Halo 3. I'm looking at everyone's screens. I'm like, oh, shit, there's Master Chief. What's he doing? Is that what's that level? Oh my gosh, this is crazy. I'm getting to see inside, peek behind the curtain. And so this was like crazy, like super AAA stuff. And so I sat down with the art team. We had this kind of informal, it was really weird, but in a good way. We had this informal interview. One of the guys who interviewed me, it was a good friend of mine, now became a good friend of mine, Marcus Leto. And we just, shot the breeze, and I showed them some of my stuff, and they seemed interested, they sounded interested. And they didn't bring me back for a more formal loop the following week.
Mm-hmm.
I remembered all the names that time. That was
yeah.
no problem.
That's a learning experience, right?
It is a learning experience, yeah. But yeah, obviously it worked out, and then I was there for that's the longest stint I've ever had. I don't think I bet I won't have a stint longer than that. I just had that feeling in my bones. That was almost 10 years.
Oh, wow.
That I was there. So that was Halo 3, Halo ODST, Halo Reach, Destiny 1, and the very beginning of Destiny 2. There's a little ghost in my house.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that was a long experience. Started off as just they called it 3D artist, and then gradually went to senior, and then by Destiny I became lead artist for the hard surface team, and then that was how I kind of wrote out the experience there.
Huh, man. So that reminds me, just a quick aside. About 2 years ago, I'm here at Universal Studios in Harry Potter World, and I'm just like standing in line to get on the train, and it's going to be like 20 minutes or whatever. And I noticed the guy next to me has on a Bungie shirt, but it says it was like Bungie and then some kind of weird name under it. And I was like, so I was like curious. I'm like, I don't know what that is. So I asked him. He's like, oh, this is like our there was like some kind of a charity or some kind of thing that they did.
Okay.
And so we were kind of talking a little bit about it, and long story short, it was Pete Parsons.
Pete Parsons.
And so I had no idea, we're just kind of talking. And then I was like, so what, he's like, oh, I work at Bungie, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, what do you do there? As well, I run the company. Like, oh shit. So then,
I am Mr. Bungie.
Right. So we were talking, and I brought up Mark Peterson, and he was just glowing about Mark, who's one of the guys we worked with at Oddworld, who I love that dude. Like, is super talented guy.
Great guy. I stay in touch with him to this day. Obviously, I worked with him a long time at Oddworld, at Bungie. Ryan and I, it took a bit for us to get him to apply to Bungie, because after Oddworld, he went in a couple of different routes, and he ended up at Double Fine in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
that's right.
He worked in Brutal Legend, and I was at so I go to Bungie first, then Ryan came over. And the two of us are trying to bring Mark over because, dude, you got to get up to Bungie. It's going to be awesome. We kept pestering him. And then finally he relented, because I think he and his wife were happy living in the Bay Area. Yeah. So we just kept pestering him. And finally he relented, and he said, fine. And then he came to Bungie. And
you wore him down.
I wore him down. And then his career just took off like a rocket. Like, he's the head of the world art department.
Yeah.
I mean, he's big cheese there. Manages his organization maybe upwards of 50 something artists. It's a huge organization.
Yeah.
Especially for all that stuff they support in Destiny. But he's doing great. He's doing awesome there. Yeah. I just talked to him just the other day.
Oh, nice. Such a good dude.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to him in a while. I need to fix that. But yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. He's still doing it. We actually have a decent number of ex-Oddworlds up in this neck of the woods.
Yeah, you do. So, and ex-Volition people. So that was
ex-Volition. It's
like Bungie, everybody I know all I'll end up at Bungie.
There was a running gag with Bungie, Volition. I think it started with an artist, amazing talent. If you ever want to look this gentleman up, I can maybe write his name down somewhere. Frank Capizzuto. Yeah. Amazing concept artist. He came over from Volition way back. This is Halo 2.
Yep.
And I think he was the start. And then a stream of people came from Champaign to the Pacific Northwest after him, to the point where a good chunk of the Bungie art staff was ex-Volition.
Yeah.
Like they all were buddies. They all knew each other. And they've all kind of floated around each other ever since. But yeah, we got a decent number of ex-Oddworlders in this area. So like, obviously, so I work with Ryan Ellis and Rich McCain at Probably Monsters. Steve Desolate is now at Probably Monsters. Gautam and Matt Scott, they're at Valve.
Yeah.
Dave Moore works for Oculus.
Right.
Andy Smith was up here. He's in San Francisco.
Okay.
Charles
is up there, right?
Well, he lives in Oregon, I believe,
okay.
in a farm in Oregon with his family. But I believe he
right.
works for I think he works for what are they called? Rad Game Tools.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So Rad Game Tools is one of those companies I understand as an engineer.
That's where Dave.
You get in there. Dave was and then he left to go to Oculus.
Okay.
And then Charles, as I understand it, like Charles was there. When you're an engineer, you get a job at Rad Game Tools, you're set. You don't leave Rad Game Tools. That's basically a job you can have for the rest of your life because it's a really, really solid gig. And then Drew Murray, not Drew Murray. Drew Murray's another guy. Drew Card is at, he's at Rad Game Tools.
Oh man.
And I'm trying to, it's a good number of people.
Wow.
Part of me kind of thinks I'm forgetting someone, but I think that's just off the top of my head. Yeah, so it's a good number of ex-Oddworlds up here.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, that's Seattle's always been it's one of those places where I'm like, if I move again, that's one of those places I'll consider. Yeah.
It can weather-wise it's back and forth, like this the West Coast, one of the things we had to deal with this fall, at the beginning of end of summer, early fall was like the wildfires. So that does pop up every now and again. You have to deal with all that stuff. And then the rain can be intense, but I love it. I've been up here for a really long time. I hope to never leave. We're real comfy up here, and it's a great place to live.
I think my ultimate dream is to have a summer home there and then be in Orlando for the rest of the year.
That's a lot of people do that. Not a bad idea. Get one of those island homes on the Bainbridge Island or something like that, or go up to because we all love going up go up to Orcas Island or the San Juan Islands.
Mm-hmm.
I try every summer. Usually every summer we do a week out on Orcas Island. We rent a house, take the family, take the dog, and we just go out there and just relax. Turn the phones off, no internet, and just chill out.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
It's really nice. Yeah, you're right. You're right in the coast. It's just great. I love it.
All right, we got about 15 minutes left.
Sure.
We're not going to get through everything, right?
Sure.
But I do want to hear what caused you to leave Bungie, do V1 Interactive, and what your role there was, and kind of because I don't really have any insight into that yet.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, so by the time we get to the peak Destiny 1, I was lucky enough to be promoted to art lead for the hard surface team, and that carried over into beginning Destiny 2, and it was a great gig, awesome gig, amazing group of talent, super fun job. And then the one catch with it, just the one catch, and this is what happens with management, is I wasn't creating as much.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a lot of management. Yeah. That's what the company needed. It's fine. This is the way it was. But it was a little boring in the sense that I wish I was making stuff again.
Yeah.
But at the same, it's just, but that's the situation. And then what happened was a guy I mentioned briefly, Marcus Leto. He was the art director and creative director at Bungie for a long time. He'd worked on that. He's been at that franchise, that company since Chicago. Worked on the Myth series, Marathon.
Really, there forever.
He's like Mr. He really is like Mr. Bungie. He's like very, very identifiable with Bungie. And he had left at the beginning of Destiny just to pursue some other opportunities. And what had happened was around 2016, he had put the pieces together to start his own game studio that he was going to call V1 Interactive.
Okay.
And he landed, he got a small group of devs together, put a pitch together, and got a deal with Take-Two Interactive, and to start a company and make this game that he's going to call Disintegration. It was going to be this fusion, or it was made a fusion of like first-person shooter and real-time strategy game. And anyway, so we had stayed in touch over the years, and then he made a pitch to me. It's like, hey, so what I just described to you, starting a company, brand new thing. Would you be interested in coming on board and being part of the staff? It's going to be a really small company. We're talking 20, maybe 20, 30 people. And instantly that sounded appealing to me because I get a chance to get right back into it, making content again. And then also it's going to be Unreal Engine 4, which I know is, it's like, it's pretty common tech. I get to learn some new stuff. Like I said, like learning is very important for me. And that sounded so appealing that I was like, you know what? This could be a risk because it's a small company. It's a brand new property. Who knows how it goes here? The thing with Bungie is it feels stable, right? It's Destiny is kind of, people love Destiny. It was still going strong. And it felt like a real solid job. So, but I was like, I'm going to give this a shot because also financially it was a fine deal. It wasn't a risk for my family. It wasn't like, hey, but we also need you to put an X amount of money into. It was like, no, it was like you're going to get a paycheck. There's benefits. It's basically no break from Bungie. And I was like, you know what? If it fails, I can go back to Bungie or try something else. Talk to my wife about it. She's like, you know what? It sounds like a reasonable enough bet. Let's just go for it. So I went for it. So I left Bungie all in super good terms, spring 2016, to go start at V1 as one of the 3D artists. And I was like, we had a really, for the production of that game, it's about 4-year production. 2020 was when it shipped June 2020.
Mm-hmm.
It was a small art staff. Like I pretty much did all the weapons and vehicles. Another amazing artist, Scott Shepard, did practically all the characters. We also had 2 other amazing artists, Julia Lee and Aaron DeLeon, also did character and vehicle work. So, and then we also had, and then we had a very small world art team, a 1-man effects team, very small. Every department was really small.
Yeah.
And it was like a good, tight squad. And even though I have left that company, it was super fun. I really enjoyed my time there. That was a really, really good time because it was working with a small group. It reminded me of Oddworld in a lot of ways. It was this real tight group where we all were just riffing off each other. And also like I said, there was no on-site. We didn't have a concept art team on site. So art-wise, we're all just riffing on each other's ideas and just developing as we went. And Marcus created this really awesome, like almost guild-like environment where he just wanted to hear from everybody. Like even though he's the creative director and he had a vision, he didn't like stamp it down on us. It was more like, okay, let's everyone pitch in. He's really good at like shaping all the different inputs to like get it moving because he's an experienced developer. Like he shipped tons of games,
right?
So he and that was actually the thing that was really cool about that group was that it was all fairly senior staff. We had definitely had plenty of people who were fresh out of Digipen. The dev school up here.
Oh yes,
but they carried themselves like they were pros. It was really intense. Like I couldn't have but you could have told that these guys had never shipped a game before. Like they really carried themselves well, and it was just a fun production. I really had a really good time working on that game.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then right, so that shipped in June, and then I we also like the interesting thing about shipping it is like right when we're kind of getting ready for the last stretch, the quarantine kicks in.
Yeah.
So we realized we have to finish this game from home.
Right.
And the company adjusted to that so well. We twisted to work from home like that, and we actually managed to ship a game during a quarantine on 3 different platforms.
Man,
that's crazy.
That is crazy.
So certainly the most interesting ship I've ever had in my entire life. I don't think I'll ever have an experience quite like that.
Well, we can thank 2020 for that, right?
Yeah, we can thank 2020 for a lot of things. That amongst it. Woo, boy, oh boy.
Well, at least we're learning, right?
At least we're learning. So yeah, so that was June, and then I decided in August to start. Like I wanted to kind of move on to something else. Like it was a great experience, but I wanted to see what else was just to see what else was going on out there, and I did some sniffing around, and then that's when ProbablyMonsters popped up on my radar, and I had been keeping track of them because, like I said, Ryan Elson and I go back a long way,
right?
And you would get lunch on a regular basis, and then he told me about the developments there. So I'm not sure. Are you familiar with what ProbablyMonsters is?
No. Actually, I didn't even know that you were there. So it's
brand new for me. This is within weeks. Okay. So this is super new. So it doesn't look like we have too much time. So maybe I can come back and I can give you more detail.
Absolutely.
But the super short version of it is ProbablyMonsters was it's a studio that's almost like an incubator.
Okay.
And what they do is they're setting up. They bring in the talent and they set them up. They're setting up these other like satellite studios and each satellite studio kind of pursues its own initiative. I believe they can all get their own publishing deals, their own financing. ProbablyMonsters, I believe, does have an ownership stake, but basically it's like they're all kind of their own independent operator.
Okay.
And 2 studios have been announced so far. There's Firewalk, which is where I'm at.
Okay.
And their focus is on multiplayer experiences. And then there's another studio called Cauldron, which is where Steve Deslitz, our friend Steve Deslitz, he's over there as a design director. I believe they're focusing on single player experiences.
Okay.
And they just announced a third. I don't think it has a name. It's a lot of ex-developers from Runic Software. Do you remember them?
Yeah.
Torchlight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Runic sadly folded some time ago. But they, the teams have stayed together and kept going.
That's nice.
and also some ex Gearbox devs, and they have a team that's working on a co-op RPG.
Okay.
And that's currently what they've announced so far. So it's kind of a brand new thing. They're just kind of getting ramped up here. I know a lot of the guys here, a lot of ex Bungie, also ex Oddworld, like I said, Ryan and Rich McCain, and. Yeah, so we got to talking and it just seemed like a pretty exciting opportunity to join them at the beginning of their journey. So that's where I am now. So this is brand new. This is like, I've only been there for like maybe a week or 2.
Oh, okay.
So, and that
explains why I had no idea. So that
yeah, so this is brand new. And it's all, of course, interesting because it's all work from home. So I've yet to meet anyone except for the people I already know.
Right.
A lot of the new team I haven't met in the flesh. It's all been like this, through Zoom. So it's definitely an interesting experience.
All right. Man, that's
like
seriously, we definitely need to have you back on because I feel like
for sure, man.
Especially starting at the Bungie point, we just kind of like, so I was at Bungie for 10 years.
Oh, yeah, Bungie. Well, there's a lot to cover there. Yeah, all the stuff. I mean, even the V1 experience, like going from like a giant company to a small company, kind of back to a giant company. Like there was a lot of stuff we could talk about there. But I would happily come back if you'd have me.
Man.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll chat after this and figure out another time. But I do want to ask, like, the one thing I like to ask at the very end is just what is the single piece of advice you have for someone who's trying to get their first job in the industry?
Oh boy, that's a good one. Okay, so I wrote up some advice for artists. It's not a single piece. So I'll try to remember. So it's a little technical. I hope it's not too technical.
No, whatever, man.
So when you're applying for a job, because I've looked at so many applications that sadly are not hitting the mark.
Yeah.
Make sure you know what you're applying for. And for art jobs, like if you're applying for a hard surface job, apply with hard surface, meaning like robots, weapons, techie content. If it's a character job, apply with character content, effects, environment art, so on and so forth. Make sure you're super focused. Make sure what you're applying with is within the style of the company that you are aiming for. If you're applying to Blizzard, you pretty much want a more cartoony graphic style.
Yeah.
If you come out with them with like a Gears of War style of application, it might not go that great. Even though your art may be killer, it might not be the style they're looking for. Now, to be fair, there are definitely instances where art leads and directors may see like, all right, it's this, but I feel like they could do this.
Right.
That can certainly happen, but really, especially when you're first time out and you haven't got a built-up, you'll have that well of experience. Really try to be have your portfolio as focused as you can on where you're going for.
Yeah. And
also try, and I know it can be hard, especially if you're starting out, as much content as you can muster. Like applying with 1 or 2 pieces it's a real quick way to have a person just, click the button, because especially when you're applying, like they're looking at dozens of, if not hundreds of portfolios.
Yeah.
You've really got to grab them by the throat and say, look at me by the eyeballs, not the throat. Look at me, look at my stuff. And the more stuff you have, the better,
Yeah.
And make sure it's crystal clear. I highly recommend, like, if for portfolios, you use something like ArtStation, because ArtStation just takes all the work away from you. It presents your work super crystal clear. Art directors and art leads like myself, we know ArtStation. We know how to navigate it and look at your stuff. And just take that part away. Don't worry about that, because I've seen places where applicants where they apply, and then it's really, they try to get fancy with like the motion graphics and the layout, and you don't need to do that. We just want to see your work, know. And personal work is great. It shows me how you think. It's not required, if you're applying for a 3D job, 3D is great. 2D is always a bonus. It's not required. It does show me you're well-rounded. I like to see well-rounded skills because it just shows me your creative process.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when you're applying, like, be as focused as you can. Don't go into it just like Don't half-ass it.
Yeah.
You really, because you'd say this is a super competitive field. Jameson is, you well know, like you got to go for it. And there's tons of people, not just like newbies, but also professionals looking for work too. And you got to you got to bring your A game.
Absolutely.
Even if you're starting out.
Yeah. And that same mentality is true for all disciplines. I think I know it is for
Absolutely.
design, where like, if I'm looking for a level designer, I don't want to see system stuff and writing and like, I'm looking for a very specific set of skills, and I want you to showcase that. So I totally get that vibe. That really makes sense to me.
Yeah. Right. Swing for the fences. You just got to go for it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But man, I'm really excited because I know we're going to get to do this again, and I've got a lot.
This was so much fun. This was so much fun. I've never done anything before. And this was a riot. It's a blast.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
So I guess for now, if people would like to get in touch with you, and if they have any follow-up questions, that kind of thing, is there a way you would like for them to do that? Like, my
Gmail is great. It's Rnattam, RNATTAM as in Michael at gmail.com. Is there a place we can write that down?
I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah. By all means, get in touch with me if you got questions.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, man.
And I'll send you a link to my ArtStation page if you want to share that. People want to look at for examples of stuff that people. That's a good idea. It's kind of whatever. I'm not being trying to toot my own horn, but it's like a good basic here's not, you don't have to do that much stuff, but a general here's kind of like a good
Okay.
So
we'll put that
I'll send it to you in Discord.
Yeah, we'll put it in the Discord. And then
I'll send that to you right now. Yeah,
okay.
For sure, man. For sure.
Cool. All right. I'm going to jump off here, say my goodbyes. I will contact you and we'll talk about another time. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for listening, putting up with my nonsense. Thank you, Jameson. This was great. It's been great.
It's been great
stuff. This was so much fun.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. I'll
come back for sure.
All right, man.